Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Loan Officer Wealth Podcast. I'm here with Tim Regan. Tim, welcome to the show.
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me.
It is my pleasure. So, you are the president of VIP Mortgage Inc. I believe you guys have funded over $25 billion in mortgages. Is that right?
Yeah, not the president. Just have my own little team, but the volume is close to that. Yes.
That is incredible. So, would you mind sharing with me and the audience your history? Like, how did you get into the mortgage business and how did you get started and how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, so started as I like to say, I started before Y2K. For anybody who doesn't know what that is, I started it before the year 2000, 1999. And actually, the way I got into the business was I was selling furniture, and the furniture store, you had 2 days off during the week. And my brother had started it at a mortgage company, and he used to have me come in on my days off during the week, and I would cold call for him and a couple of other guys. And back then, for anybody who remembers, like the good leads came from people actually going down to the courthouse and getting details on recorded mortgages and then trying to track numbers and contacts down in a phone book, even if you had to. So it was a different process than what it is now. But so I would call some of those leads. I'd follow up on other leads that were created, and was really just kind of an appointment setter. And then about a year, not quite a year after that, I got into full-time originating. And that was, I went full-time originating like February of 2000. And outside of a short break after the crash, it's been pretty much my entire career. Yeah.
That is incredible. That's amazing. I think it's wonderful that you went back to the basics because a lot of what we do today is we provide concierge services, which is making the phone calls that we believe that loan officers shouldn't be making those calls. We believe that you should have somebody in between you and either your past customers or the realtors that you're trying to attract, and that person makes those calls. So it's, here we are, 22 years later and still the same.
Yeah. And those skills are so transferable, like, making the calls and being able to do it, and then being able to say, you're not afraid to do it, or when you have to lead by example for those things, you can.
Absolutely.
But also translates into, the one-on-one interactions or group settings where you're just so used to and comfortable having conversation.
Yeah, and it takes a little bit of practice, but everybody gets there eventually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, so tell us about the business today. What does the business look like today?
Yeah, that's a great question, because one of my sayings that I've repeated to myself, and anybody who will listen for that matter, since COVID happened, that I think is super applicable to the mortgage industry, is doing things the way they've always been done doesn't make them right
Yeah.
or most efficient, right? So, the use of social media, the use of VAs, the use of technology to get in front of the audiences that you want to get in front of or retain, either way. It's just the way it seems to be going. Even this, 5 years ago, 8 years ago, this probably isn't happening, right? So yeah, I've also am getting ready to implement some of my own class structure type stuff to where I can get in front of audiences using technology like Zoom. And I think if you only do it one way, I'm not saying you can't have success, right? But if you don't, it's almost like if you don't try some of the new things, you don't know how much further you can go if you're not willing to adapt. Because at some point, some things that we do just become archaic. Like, perfect example, I used to handwrite all my applications. I will never handwrite an application ever again. So it's an ever evolving thing.
Most certainly. And I've got actually a really potent example of that. So I was speaking with a gentleman a couple of weeks ago, and he was like, I'm just getting back into the swing of doing my first time home buyer seminars at a local real estate office. We haven't done them in 2.5 years. We've lost a ton of business because haven't been able to do them. And I can't wait to be back in the classroom with my first time home buyers. And I have another client of ours who is working with us. And what we did was we immediately took that home buyer seminar and we turned it into a webinar. And now they're getting 4, 5, 6 times the amount of first-time home buyers into what traditionally was a first-time home buyer seminar at a real estate office. Now it's done online. It's still live. Everybody's still in the room, but they're taking 3 or 4 times more applications just by taking it online, because people don't have to get in the car. They don't have to feel weird about going into a room and feeling like they're going to get a high-pressure sales pitch. They can sit on the couch and watch this webinar at 7 o'clock at night. So that's kind of that advancement you're talking about.
Yeah, the convenience economy is real.
Oh, 100%. I love that. The convenience economy. So can you give us some examples of what you're doing right now to grow your business? Like, where does the majority of your business come from right now?
Yeah, I mean, most of what I do. So just to kind of give some background is I spent most of my career in the consumer direct world, which was a lot of direct to consumer, mostly direct mail, to be honest. And when I say that, some people are like, really? Direct mail? It still works, believe it or not, if you are consistent enough. But a couple of years ago, I made the transition into the retail side. And so it's, look, there's some basics to it, making some phone calls, doing the networking, hosting events, being present. I've certainly dove quite a bit into video in the last year, and I've connected with a lot of agents who, need help getting started, and I've tried to offer some help there. The class part is one of the things I wrote down for my 2023 business plan, doing more presentation to different audiences, whether it's direct to consumer or agent specific. I also have some stuff that I want to work on with a couple of financial planners. So it's just really trying to dive in and right now it's really about attention more than anything. And so what of these things that I'm working on ends up getting the most attention, and where, once we identify those things, how do we double down and amplify that? Not to mention, finally taking the YouTube dive. I've been doing short form stuff for about 1.5 years, and finally hooked up with some friends of mine at a media agency here in Tempe, EIC, in Tempe, Arizona. They're going to help me launch a YouTube channel. So super grateful for that, and really excited about what the possibilities of that could be also.
That is amazing. So we have certainly ramped up our short form content as well. If you look at how fast TikTok took market share and spooked Facebook and Instagram, they're all changing their platforms to that short form style content. And
TikTok thing is a little different than Instagram, Tim. I'm not going to lie. I definitely have a little bit more fun on TikTok.
Most definitely. And so but I mean, that's that forward thinking. Like, that's where the consumers are. I mean, I have interviewed 2 individuals on this podcast where they are generating the majority of their business from TikTok. And, people look at that and they think, what? How is that even possible? But when you look at the first time home buyer segment of today's marketplace and being able to get in front of a lot of qualified buyers in a really short period of time, it's an excellent brand strategy.
You said something that triggered a thought that I've had, is a lot of people have the question, what's possible? And I think if you turn that question into a statement and think of it, much bigger, you realize there's so much more that's possible than not if you just try to get out there and apply yourself.
Oh, 100%. And I think a lot of that comes from focus as well. Like, as a loan officer, trying to be everything to everyone in today's economy and to today's borrower, you have to stand for something. You have to have a message. Now, you can have multiple messages on it, for example, your YouTube channel, you can have a channel specifically dedicated to first time homebuyers, and you can have another channel specifically dedicated to VA. But you've got to speak to that specific audience, because if you're just talking about general mortgage information on a general channel, you just can't get focused enough on the audience in order to get attention.
And I think YouTube is, from what I can tell in my conversations and research, is really trying to also give creators space to have the different playlists without having to have so many different channels, which I'm really curious to see how some of that plays out. Because for me, my ADD can only handle so much bandwidth, right? So within what I want to do on YouTube is really going to be playlist oriented versus this is the only thing you'll get out of this one spot on YouTube.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And oddly enough, even though it's not a directly applicable example, if you take a look at Dave Savage's channel on The Mortgage Coach, he has done a phenomenal job of
Shout
breaking
out
his
to the
content
mortgage
down.
coach. Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're
Shout out to Dave, Uncle Dave. He's everywhere, that guy.
Oh man, he's fantastic. We just had him on the show, and it was just a phenomenally valuable conversation. So, Tim, you said something earlier that I'd like to circle back to about direct mail.
Mhm.
I always get questions about direct mail after we have guests on about more details about it. So could you break down what your direct mail strategy was and how it works for a loan officer that's never put something in the mail before? How did you use that to go consumer direct?
Yeah, I mean, the direct mail stuff that we did was more refi driven, right?
Okay, yeah.
And so it was, yeah, how do you dive into this? It's like anything. If you're not consistent with it, you'll never get the response. Direct mail can be extremely expensive. So if you're not willing to spend 6, 9 months to a year on a campaign, don't do one, right?
Right.
Because it'll be a waste of money. But on what we used to market specifically was typically FHA or VA loan products. Most of my career was spent in doing government lending, and so we would identify whether it was loan dates, or if you went into, and I know it's a hot topic, but some of the trigger stuff where you're looking at credit scores. It's really just identifying what you really want to target, and you can be macro, or you can be extremely niche down if you have access to some trigger data, because let's just call the spade a spade. The credit bureaus make money on selling that information. I'm sorry
Yep.
to say that out loud, but if you have access to it, you can get extremely granular with zip code, neighborhood, credit score, veteran, non-veteran, income, all kinds of different demographics. And so, the company I worked for, they had an idea of what demographic they wanted to go after, which was typically either FHA or VA. And we just consistently mailed to those particular things until we got a response, and then we may move or broaden from there, right? You have to understand the data you're mailing to, and then understand what those responses are to really kind of refine over time. And my brother was really the one who ran that campaign, and he's been doing it for 20 plus years and understands it on a level most people will never know, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And when you would do those mailers, what would you find would be the number one response mechanism? Was it people calling back in, sending an email, going to a website? Where did you traditionally drive the traffic?
Yeah, most of it was phone calls, but certainly we also set up the chat ability on the website where people could jump onto the website and chat. But most people honestly call. I'm thinking back, there weren't a ton of emails. It would either be a phone call or it would be somebody jumped into the chat on the website.
Very cool. That's super helpful. And then, so fast forwarding to today, past direct mail, you're trying a lot of things: short content, YouTube, TikTok. Where are you gaining traction, and where do you think the future of the lending industry direct to consumer is going?
Well, that man, that's a loaded question, Chris. The future is really direct to consumer is online. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we already know that the answer to that is that it's online, but it's also through relationships, because as good as I could be in creating content, or you could be, or anybody can be, you're still never getting to a big enough audience to have, really a very large portion of the market share, right? I
Yep.
mean, real estate is the largest economy there is, right? So you don't need a large, you don't have to have such a large market share, but you can't necessarily get to where you want to go through one way, right?
Yep.
You have to be able to be direct to consumer, but you also need to have the relationships with people locally, the agents, the inspectors, the financial advisors, attorneys, those kind of things, because that's a whole different demographic of people that as you attract consumers, you need their resources, and you never know when they need your resources. So to me, I really want to be as evergreen on every platform as I can. That's the goal for 2023, is to have more of my content on more platforms, so that when conversations come up, it's no longer just who's Tim Regan. It's, oh, you're Tim Regan, I've seen you, right? You want it.
Yep.
I'm trying to really create the evergreen ability to be in front of people without having to be in their living room, right?
Yep. Absolutely. It's so funny. We're along the same lines in our content. So I've been pushing in the mortgage industry for 15 years to be known, and, a ton of conferences, ton of webinars, ton of, newsletter articles and all of that good stuff. And today we're moving into the financial services industry. So our call center services that we do, we're also looking to work with financial advisors and insurance professionals, and also attorneys and some other that fit within there, because nobody calls their past customers, and that's where the majority of business comes from. So we have a very unique value proposition in the fact that, like, you have free money sitting in your database and we will call and get it for you. Right? But when I sat down and I was originally starting my business 15 years ago, I looked at, how do I get on stages? How do I get in front of people in large amounts that I can leverage my time to be able to speak to more people? Now we're taking that exact same approach, but we're directing it towards social media. How do we get in front of people on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube? And how do we create content that's valuable for those people? And I think that that's where a lot of people miss. It's like, I sell mortgages, I've got an FHA program, I'm going to go on and I'm going to talk about products and services that I offer, deals that I've done, where turning it around and think about what's in it for them and using that to create your content. So I'm interested in your content strategy, let's say for referral partners, for going out and providing value for realtors or financial planners. How do you approach what you're going to talk about and putting that content out there?
Yeah, financial planners are tricky. They're, as much as we think we're regulated, they're pretty regulated too. They have to be careful. But I think what I see, what I really want to move away from is exactly what you're saying. I mean, sitting down and trying to explain mortgage insurance on an FHA loan, the upfront and monthly, like, I mean, you will put people to sleep with that stuff. Not that it's not important, right? But so for me, as far as like, and just on the agent side, when I sit down and I see an agent who's already creating content, I try to help them with some of the things that I've learned through the amount of hours of content. If you're, Forward Academy and Neil Dingraf spent a lot of time with Neil and his crew and some other folks. But really just trying to help people understand how to create a piece of content that somebody will actually want to watch. Because I think we've all spent some time on Instagram and been like, did they really just say that? For all
Oh yeah.
right. So it's as far as that, it's making them realize that as professionals, there's so much we take for granted, so much information that we have, that we deal with on a daily basis, that as much information is out there on the internet, most consumers still ask the same handful of questions
Yes.
within every transaction. And so how can you create content to those things that will be educational but also engaging, that people will also watch them and want to continue to watch the next one and the next one. And so those are some of the things I talk with agents. I have yet to have a financial advisor who is willing to start to do some of that on a meaningful level on TikTok and Instagram. They're, again, as regulated as we are, I have found that not insurance, but financial advisors are a little bit more skittish than even some loan officers are.
Oh, absolutely. And Tim, you just hit on a super valuable point on there's only so many questions. Like it really, quite truly, there might be 15 questions that people ask about mortgages. You know, what's my rate? How's my payment calculated? How much money do I need down? You know, obviously there's going to be your personality types that want more information. But if a loan officer just sits down, and even I've seen this where you've got a camera set up where much like this, you know what I mean? Like the tripod's there, the lights are there. When the idea comes, I'm pretty fast to be able to turn it on and get the content out. So when you're sitting at your desk and you get that question from the borrower and you're in that meeting, just take a second, write down what the question is. And then after you're done your client meeting, give that information to the world, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's very true, right? Somebody said it. There are no new problems, right?
Yeah.
That's super applicable in mortgage and real estate. I mean, there's some nuance to every deal for sure, but especially in that first time home buyer segment, there's very common questions. You know, what do I qualify? You know, what are my closing costs? What's earnest money? You know, why do I have to have an inspection? I mean, you could, you know, here in Arizona, why don't I have an attorney? You know, because it's a non-attorney state, right? I originally from the Chicago area. That's a huge difference in how things work in the mortgage and real estate world. Is, you know, Illinois is an attorney state and Arizona is not, right? So it's so true. There's a lot of basic questions that happen every day on every transaction. And I think we as professionals sometimes glaze right over it.
Yeah.
Because it's like we've answered that question so many times, we can't possibly think someone will ask it again.
Yep. That's so true. And
Yeah.
so in your referral partner strategy, and again, thank you for being so generous with your time. Are you generating leads consumer direct and then using those to go get new referral relationships? Or do you have a direct to referral partner strategy that you're using to nurture those relationships?
Yeah, that's a great question. And previously, right, I've changed my tune on this, to be honest with you, is when I would have consumer direct leads, I would leverage those for new relationships. And what I've realized is that I would much rather be loyal to the ones who are already trying to help me grow my business rather than the other route, because I just haven't found that it has been reciprocated on a level that's really worth in that route. Now, if you're going to create leads and I'm going to create leads and we can work together, I'm all for that. Not that I don't ever want to use it, but it's like if somebody's given me 6-7 referrals, even if they don't close, just the opportunities, right? Why would I then take somebody and give it to somebody I've never worked with? No matter how bad I want to work with that person, I would much rather reciprocate than try to start a new. And it wasn't always that way. This is something that I've really kind of the last few months here had a conversation with somebody and they opened my eyes that, you know, love on the ones who love you, because as much as many opportunities they're giving you, it's only one instance away from them moving on to the next one. But when there's good mutual reciprocation, I love that word, by the way, it's, you know, it becomes much easier to really grow together. And, you know, look, things happen on deals. Nobody closes 100%.
Yep.
right? So, the last thing you want is you have one deal that just happens to go south, and then that's the end of a relationship. Whereas if there's, skin in the game on both sides, it's much easier to just really dive in and be a true partner to each other.
Yeah, that is such good advice. And we get all of the time from our clients. So we book appointments with qualified realtors. That's one of the call center services that we offer with the concierge. And
Yeah.
all of the time they're getting, you know, it's about the relationship up front. And trying to start a relationship with somebody that's already abrasive up front is probably not going to be a good time. And I think what everybody looks at just one meeting and it's like, oh, I didn't get that one meeting. This isn't working. And it's like, well, just wait. It's a numbers game. And all you're really trying to do is find the people that you vibe with. It's not how much business they have to send you today. It's how much business would you like to do together and reciprocate together over the next 5 years? Those
Yeah.
are the people that you're looking for.
Yeah. And I think, not that originators can't create leads, because plenty of them do.
Yeah.
But there's many that operate on a high level, really just servicing a book of business for agent partners, right? And you would never know they existed. Some of them don't even show up in Scotsman Guide, believe it or not.
Yep.
Right. And so I think there's many different ways to be successful. Everybody just has to identify what you're good at. It took me a minute to get comfortable creating content. I know the long game of content will lead to, opportunities to help families. That's the goal. I got in this business. I didn't know what a mortgage was or how to spell a mortgage. I stayed in it because I love the problem solving, and I'll continue to do this because ultimately I love helping people. And
Yep.
so through content creation and through networking, it gives me an opportunity to help more people, whether that's clients or agents build their business through the people I attract. That's what I want to do. That's why I'm still here 20 years in, and still loving it, right? Like I love doing what I do as much now. Certainly it's a little bit challenging time, but man, I still love the conversation of talking to a first-time home buyer, talking to an investor trying to go from 2 to 3 or from 4 to 7. How do I get the next handful? I love those conversations and being a resource to help people realize those goals and those dreams.
That's amazing, Tim. That is absolutely awesome. Well, again, thank you for being so generous with your time. You put out some fantastic content. If there's loan officers out there that would like to have a conversation or that would be interested, where do you direct people? How can people get a hold of you?
You can pretty much find me at TimKnowsLoans on all platforms,
Nice.
every single one. Just getting ready to launch YouTube. That's going to be called Phoenix Show and Tell.
Oh, nice.
Haven't put out any. I've got a couple episodes recorded, but the goal to that is to highlight the people, places, businesses, and nonprofits of Phoenix. So look, people do market updates, and I'm not hating on that. They're super important, but a lot of the stuff I've found that are put out within the industry ends up focusing on some of that. And I really want someone to know what the makeup is of people in Phoenix, what they care about, where they like to go, not just for me saying go here because I made a video here, but almost like a free third party recommendation, if you will. And through my work with nonprofits, I want to show that there's people who carelessly give hours and hours of time to pour into people here in Phoenix, whether it's on the low income end, whether it's a fundraise for many years with Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. The new one is really more small business and entrepreneur focused with State 48 Foundation. I want people to get a sense for what's happening behind the scenes beyond the market updates.
Yeah. And so you mentioned State 48 Foundation. What is that?
State 48 Foundation is born from a clothing brand called State 48. So for anybody who doesn't know, Arizona is the 48th state. So if you look up State 48, all spelled out, you'll see on Instagram, you'll see State 48, which is a t-shirt clothing brand.
Hmm.
And I connected with those guys a few years back when I was fundraising for Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. They created a t-shirt, which we then sold to raise money. And they've done that with tons of nonprofits around the valley. They've collaborated not just with nonprofits, but with other businesses to help highlight their brand as well. And schools, they do a lot of fundraisers with schools and creating t-shirts and things like that. And so they've partnered with all these different charities over the years and said, how can we make a bigger impact to the people of Phoenix, people of Arizona that we love, that have poured into us so much.
Hmm.
And so out of that came State 48 Foundation. Raised my hand to volunteer a few years ago. And so we really focus on the small business entrepreneur community and youth mentorship, along with continuing to create meaningful partnerships with other businesses and nonprofits to tap into and collaborate resources on our nonprofit side. Our signature event is a entrepreneur speaker series. We just wrapped that over summer, and that was a four-part speaker series where we had local professionals come in, and we had different topics from marketing to finance and legal to understanding your why, those kind of things. And the fundraising efforts that we had throughout the year up to that, we then earmarked $25,000 worth of grants, which we're going to give away this Friday to some entrepreneurs who applied for the grant funding. So, and that's, that is, to me, that's one of my favorite things, is going through the grant applications and just seeing the passion of people that are pouring into their business, that are pouring into their idea, and just betting on themselves to try to offer something to the community as a solution to a problem. It's literally amazing. It's so much fun. And so to be a part of that and to connect with those people, especially the ones that are early, and be a part of, potentially being the difference of them taking their idea, huge, with some of this funding to maybe not making it, it, again, going back to helping people, that's what this is all about. So.
Man, that is amazing. And what an incredible contribution to your community, Tim. Congratulations on that. That's amazing.
Thank you. Super excited. Great people. Look them up. State 48 all spelled out, and State 48 Foundation all spelled out on Instagram.
That is amazing. Well, I certainly, one of the ways to be successful and to be happy in what you're doing every day is to give back to other people. So it's fantastic to see you stepping into that as well. So Tim, thank you very much for being on the show. To all of our listeners, make sure you head on over to iTunes, hit us with a 5-star rating and review so that we can get more incredible guests like Tim on the show. And if you see this on social media, make sure you hit like, hit us with a comment, let you know what your favorite part of the episode was, and make sure you share this with everybody in the mortgage community, because a rising tide lifts all ships and we're all in this together. So we'll see you on the next episode.